Okay, here we go. Welcome to the Great Old Ones channel. Let's see what I got. There we go. Perfect. Laid it all down there. Welcome to the Great Old Ones channel. Here we talk about role-playing games, since it's one of my favorite hobbies ever. Tonight, again, Thursday night, I seem to have stuck with first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. So I think we'll go with that again tonight, since the theme, that's what we're going with. I've also advertised that, so I might as well stick with it. We're going to be talking more about dungeon design and stuff like that. And again, since I am a lightweight, I have brought some heavy hitters out again, once again. Right? I will be inviting Doom Swords onto the stage again because we all love hearing him talk. In addition to that, I've also asked Yang Yan Zhou again for Yang Yan Zhou 4. I don't know what he did with the other three. I don't think we want to ask him. I'll bring him on too as well to talk about his thoughts about dungeon design and things of that nature, because he's actually designed a commercial product. I haven't, so I might as well talk to another one of those heavy hitters on this. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get started and bring these folks out. I wonder if Doom's mic is off. I wonder if he's ready, but we'll bring Yang on since he is there. All righty, here's an appropriate.
I can neither confirm nor deny what happened to the other three.
Yeah. Well, thanks for agreeing to come back on and talk about this kind of stuff with me here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And he seems to be hidden. Let's see if we can sneak this guy on too. There he is. Hey, all right. And
hey, how you guys doing?
Wrong stuff. Well, I think we're doing pretty good tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more about dungeon design again. It's one of those things where you can never really wrap it up, but there's some more things that I wanted to mention over and above what we did last week. Talking about things like random tables and stuff like this, and that you can actually really build a good scenario just using those random tables. Right? So we'll cover a lot of that stuff and go with it as well. We do have some comments in there. I better get over there and take a look at our comments. Is somebody bad-mouthing us already? No, unfortunately not. Somebody will sooner or later here. Oh, Bo is on here to join us. We got Dr. John Smith again, as well as Ptolemachus. Hey, the usual gang's here, and this time I've got Yang in the studio as opposed to sitting on the outside heckling us. All right, so kick it off with this one here. Let me remove that one, and we will go with this one. Oh, come on. Add to stage. Slide one. There it is. The random monster encounter tables. Oh, let me get rid of my banner. Make sure that we've got Doom Swords noted there so that it shows up on the stream. So when he's editing it, he can edit that out of it. And then Yang Yang Chu 4. Yep.
It's actually ZHAO.
ZHAO. Okay, I can edit that. I believe. Edit ZHAO.
Still 4.
A, not U-O. I should learn how to type.
And I happen to know. I mean, maybe I shouldn't reveal this, Yang, but I happen to know that you lost them in a boating accident.
The other three Yangs.
Somebody told me
that's
that.
what I told the government. I lost them in a lake.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I didn't hear it from the government. Okay.
The insurance settlement come through. Is that okay? Yeah.
Soon.
Okay. All right. Random dungeon monster levels. We left off basically last week, we were talking about how that your dungeon level determined the threat level of the encounter when we're doing dungeon encounters and stuff, and then outdoors is just totally random. Could be anything from a few rats to that ancient dragon come flying by. It's totally random and stuff as this goes. But if you're designing a dungeon, you can use your random dungeon monster level determination matrix as a guide for how difficult that you want to make it. Based on their suggestions, some good words and stuff to come through with here. Is there any more pages on this? Yeah, right. Random dungeon monster tables level 1. There should be some fairly easy monsters, although Ear Seeker. Yeah, that must have been one of Gary's favorite monsters. I haven't ever used them. I'm not that mean. Them and Rot Grubs. I'm not really that mean to my players.
What I have used the Ear Seekers.
Oh, you have?
Oh,
indeed.
I'll just usually have a nasty monster on the other side of the door. Sooner or later, when everybody's listening, he'll rip open the door, and you're sitting there
Yeah.
without your helmet on. Yeah. So
Well, that's when players end up crafting or trying to craft interesting things. Is there some sort of ear horn that I can use that has iron spikes in it that I can place up to the door so that the ear seekers get trapped? You know,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I think that happened on my Monday night game. Yeah, getting an ear horn going. So you still got to take your helmet off to listen to it because the purpose of the helmet
Yes.
is to protect your head. But it was a magic user wanted to do it who doesn't normally wear head coverings. Yes. Let's see. So here's a good example of the threat level based on the monster. The dungeon level drives your threat level of it. It isn't that we have balanced encounters for first level, because if we go back a little bit, your first level could contain anything from table 1, 2, or 3, although the level of the chances of getting a level 3 monster on the first level are 5% as opposed to greater ones for the other ones, but it's still possible, right? So just because you've got a first level dungeon design doesn't mean that the threat in there is always only going to be first level. It's just a general guideline, which is useful information for the players. They get an idea, basically, the difficulty of it and how far they need to go to get to the difficulty level they feel their party is at. Right. Some good stuff in your character subtable. I think that's probably one of the more underutilized random encounters out there is a wandering opposing party. They can be a whole lot of fun, especially if you compose that parties of a similar makeup. I mean, there's a random table here for determining it, but you can compose a party of a similar makeup to the party that the player's party and have them fight it out. That would be a whole lot of fun in there and see what happens with it. Match them up, use their tactics against them, kind of thing. So, from the Dungeon Master's Guide, what did I say? What pages were these? We were starting at 174, and we go several pages through. Magic item tables for character encounters, of course, because if they're adventuring in the dungeon, they've picked up magic items and stuff along the way. Here's some suggestions as to magic items and stuff that they could have. How else your player character is going to find these things other than fighting some non-player characters that may have some of these items? So I think these are great tools. You don't necessarily have to use the rules exactly are they in there, but it should be a good, excellent guideline for when you're building your dungeon. Even if you don't use any of this stuff, how to kind of gauge your threat level for those for the various floors that you put in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this stuff is kind of ends up being neglected, being that it's in an appendix. But there is a lot of great information in here. I would also say that other adventuring parties is excellent, right? That's an excellent thing to have in your game. I think a lot of DMs don't do it because it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Particularly if you have some intrigue in town, and the sort of thing where it can develop into some kind of story arc. And on that other page, magic item tables for character encounters here. I like that too. If you're in a situation where you need to create a bunch of pre-gens or something like that to actually run a game with player characters, this sort of gives you guidelines.
You mentioned that there is actually a table for that. I'm trying to remember what page that is on. Creating a party on the spur of the moment. That's another one of the appendices. I use that a lot too. That would be page. Come on, where's it at here? Went too far. Appendix P, starting on page 225. The Dungeon Master's Guide is too big for me to actually pull up that specific page, but you can find that. That is creating a party on the spur of the moment, right? This is another way of generating a random, not necessarily random party, but hey, let's get together for a pickup game or something. I guess this is what that section was. Whereas these sections here that we're looking out of the random encounter tables was for generating your opposition forces instead. Either one could be used. Why not? Right.
Yeah.
This one is kind of geared towards that dungeon level, whereas the other one is up in the air. You choose what level party you want to run, and then the items and stuff that you could acquire comes from page 225 to stock them before they go.
Yeah, and I know that there are some people who are really into the absolutely zero prep type of games, but if you know you're doing like let's say you're doing a module that has a few levels worth of character development, it's good to have like all this stuff at the beginning. Just roll up an extra party, roll up extra characters, so then somebody goes down in the middle of the session, oh, you got one right away.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I've played in games where you needed a Post-it notepad of characters, one right after the next.
Yeah.
That kind of sounds familiar.
Friday nights. Yeah.
Friday nights, yeah. Speaking of Friday nights, we'll go ahead and he'll be happy about this. If you want to create characters relatively quickly, I think there is software out there that somebody developed that works excellently for getting all this stuff together, right? Crom from the Dungeon Delver. I've used it a couple of times to generate some characters. It helps. Bang. Things go fairly quickly. If I were to use this table, it takes time. One of the problems with generating things on the fly, the zero prep guys that generate things on the fly, is you got to take time to generate those things. And then your players kind of get bored while you're rolling stuff up. Have some things ready to go that you can pull out of your hip pocket. I'm not talking the quantum ogre thing that doesn't matter which path you take, you're always going to encounter that ogre, but just some random things that you can pull out quickly. If you're anticipating them going right turn at Albuquerque and they went left, here's something that you can have handy to throw at them. So low prep is not the same thing as zero prep.
Yes.
Yep. Here we go. Grom, the character record organization manager, I think is what he calls it. Yeah, it's great. I love it. It works fantastic. I can't wait for his other product to come out, the Dungeon Masters, the familiar that he's creating. Yeah. Whatever I can do to speed up things, getting them running, it's fine for me. All these things are random tables, perfect for computers. That's what computers do.
Well, it's especially nice since I would say most modern DMs have a computer with them. Like, it's very rare that you see someone DMing just with books these days.
Yeah, most of the time they don't have the books. That's all PDF on their computer at a minimum, right? So there's some of those things available. Sure, why not? Take advantage of technology. Technology has been pushed by the industry, especially Dragon Magazine had a column on it for years, when that stuff kept using the technology and stuff that came out, not just computer games, but other stuff that went with it. And I think it was an excellent use of technology, because computers are infuriating otherwise. Let's use them for fun. Yeah. Yep.
Let's not use printers for anything except target practice. Unless they're laser printers.
Well, yeah. Tannerite and computers and target practice, yeah. Looking forward to being a hermit someday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
My shack out in the woods.
Yeah.
Change my name to Ted.
Okay.
Now I know you lost the other three in a boating accident.
Yeah, it's kind of dating us here a little bit. We all understand who Ted is, right? And here's more of that excellent art, this shadow art here. I wonder what critter that is. Yeah.
That's
Another
not a good
fun
one.
Sturges, right?
Sturges, yes, exactly right. They're a whole lot of fun for lower level parties, because they're deadly to lower level parties, really. And they're not a very big monster itself. They just happens to be a lot of them. Right? And then you can see the example here for monster right up below the monster level 3. Here's where you start running into things like dragons. Now, these are small dragons because that's what you're going to encounter on there, but there's the examples that they give. And all those tables that were on that first page are all iterated through here for each of the different dungeon levels. You can use this as an idea. Hey, I want to build a dungeon. I just don't know what I want to pick. Let me grab this table and I'll roll in a random monster. Bam. Hey, look at this. You know, I rolled up purple worm. Okay, that's the theme of this dungeon. Right? So I'm going to build a dungeon based around a theme. You know, that's low prep. I don't have to think ahead of time. Okay, boom, and now I'm going to base everything that's going on in the dungeon around, you know, my purple worms. Right? Perfect. You know, it's a great way of inspiring yourself. If you don't use the tables for anything else, use them for inspiration.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we got underwater encounters here. That's always a lot of fun. I have only participated ever, or my entire time ever gaming, in one campaign that brought us underwater. It was my brother's.
Really?
Yeah. All the other ones have been at worst on the surface, and then everybody did not want to go under the water for whatever reason. I don't know. Maybe it was the creatures they saw underneath. Right? There's spells that can take care of some of the other problems, right?
Yeah.
Right. Let's see what else we got here. Underwater encounters, large bodies. So these aren't dungeon encounters so much. These are now we're starting into wilderness encounters, right? You can use these to seed your environment stuff too. Okay, I've got only this little bit going, but okay, now they're going to venture outside of town. They're going into this next hex. What's in that next hex? Bam, I can seed that with one of these outdoor tables or something, right? Deep water encounters, shallow water encounters. Okay, what is lurking outside the harbor of my abandoned city? And here we go. Yep. Ooh, Joe Kaufman's running a game. Fantastic.
Ooh.
Run some games.
Nice.
That always takes precedence over watching us blather on about running games. Is running one. Yeah.
There's always the replay.
Yeah, sure. Why not? And then he can just fast forward through all our nonsense and just pick the bits and pieces out that he likes.
Yeah. I think that last page should be your thumbnail, by the way.
What's that?
The last page. That should be in your thumbnail.
In my thumbnail? Not if I want to get monetized.
You're going to get him demonetized before he's even monetized.
Yeah. Off we go. Right. Where's the seashell? Yeah. I gotta slow it down. Well, slow it down to 50% so I can enjoy it longer. Okay. But, oh, clearly somebody was smoking too much right here. Yeah. Ooh. Well, vibration going. Somebody's got a nice speaker going outside on the street. All right, astral and ethereal counters. I've never done any of this, and this is something that Doomswords and I are eventually going to talk about as a manual of the planes. And if that's something that interests you, Yang, let me know, and you can hop in and discuss all that kind of fun stuff with us, because it's realms outside.
Right. I basically decided the astral and ethereal planes weren't worth having, so I redid them.
Cool.
They just, I don't know.
Sure.
They always kind of fell flat to me.
Well, they shouldn't be flat considering what they are, right?
I think so,
Yeah.
but-
Yeah.
Kind of interesting.
Well, and the expanded stuff for astral plane includes things like being tethered to what they call a silver cord and whatnot. You lose that, you're done. You know, so that's fairly interesting to me.
But this ethereal encounter table, one of my favorite monsters is phase spiders.
Yeah.
They're an awesome monster, right? And now I've got a party, right? They've got some spells that they can actually chase them into the ethereal realm and hunt them down while they're trying to run away or get away or something like that. So, use this kind of thing for inspiration. Oh, these guys got this new spell or something like this, and he wants to play with it. What can I do to help him play with it? Hey, here's some examples of some creatures and stuff that we could find. Right, plant a treasure or something that's phases in and out or something like this, and then they can do an adventure into the ethereal plane to go after them. And here's the monsters that could be found. Now, looking at this table, it is not a balanced encounter for anybody's level. These are anything that could be transported through those planes and stuff. So it could be a particularly dangerous encounter, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's worth noting that things like potion of gaseous form, basically anything that makes you incorporeal, um, puts you in the ethereal plane.
Well, I think
Okay,
gaseous form
so
always makes you gaseous, but we need to double check on the exact wording of whatever it is on the spell. I don't think it actually puts you into the ethereal plane. Well, we can look at it, but that you're exactly
yeah,
right.
yeah,
Those sorts of things.
Yep.
If I'm going incorporeal, I'm going into the ethereal plane, and if you're in the
right,
ethereal
right.
plane, anything. Okay, we're hiding in the ethereal plane from this monster that's over there. Oh, look at this! A dragon comes up. Wonderful.
Yeah,
That
and
other
if we look
monster.
at the
Yeah.
right, and if we look at the stars on the asterisk on these entries, that's also worth mentioning. Is that the monster manuals as clear as it can be that a basilisk, its gaze, for example, extends into the astral and ethereal planes.
Okay.
And basically, so if you are in the astral plane, even if a basilisk or Medusa or Gorgon or whatever, cockatrice is on the prime material plane, that vision extends through all of those immediately connected planes. And if you're in the astral plane and a basilisk in the prime material plane happens to glance you, it's almost like they have some sort of dual citizenship, right? If you're in the astral plane, you're killed. If you're in the ethereal plane, you're turned to stone, but you're turned to ethereal stone. They can only be seen by others on the ethereal plane. And it works for what? Medusa, Gorgon, Basilisk, Cockatrice.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Hmm.
I didn't dig into that level of detail on it. No, but wow, that's.
Yeah.
Well, you're not fleeing from me. Now
Right, right.
this is just based on these creatures. You could extrapolate that and go back into your Macho Man, your two creatures for things like the Dracolisk.
Right, right.
Yeah. So you would have to do it. Medusa. Ooh, yeah. What else we got here? Psionic encounter table. If you don't use psionics, this table was useless for you. But if you like psionics, here we go. All right. Cerebral parasites, fantastic. Brain moles, awesome, good stuff. Right? Spells resembling psionic encounters or psionic powers. Some good notes there. Even if you don't use them, these are spells that resemble psychic powers and things like this. Notes to take. Outdoor random monster encounters, inhabited areas, uninhabited areas. That's what they have, and then there's the encounter chances in outdoor areas based on population density and stuff like this. Right. You could use these to randomly populate, for your hex crawl maps and stuff like this. Let's see, what do we got here? Castle subtable, right? Who inhabits the castle, that kind of thing. So if you're wandered into a hex that's nothing in it, you roll up a castle. Well, here we go. Here's a random encounter. Now you've got a castle that you encountered. One of the things player characters are going to need to do eventually is establish a stronghold and, build up their own little area and stuff like this. They've randomly encountered this castle out in the field. They've basically taken over and killed the inhabitants. Now they've got one that's mostly intact and built. All they got to do is maintain it and then maintain the area. So some good adventure seeds can be found in these tables, even if you don't use them randomly to roll random stuff up. You can pull some ideas out of this stuff. I think the Dungeon Master's Guide, it was just a fantastic book of ideas as much as anything else.
Yeah, it really was, and that's a lot of what it is ideas, right?
And just because these things are on these tables doesn't mean you have to use that. We'll be talking about it a little bit later, but you can make up your own tables. Oh, I don't like this particular monster. I'm never going to use it in my world. Instead of ignoring the roll, create your own tables that don't have those particular type of monsters in it, right?
Yeah, and
And
something,
mhm.
as far as ideas are concerned, on the prior page, sorry, if you look at the outdoor random monster encounter tables with Arctic conditions, you'll see little sub letters or whatever they call them, some kind of superscript or whatever, or subscript. I'm not up to superscript probably. But there's a brown bear that can be encountered in Arctic conditions, a giant constrictor snake that can be encountered in Arctic conditions, and
Mhm.
then it's just an idea that says, "Hey, this is treated. This brown bear being encountered in Arctic conditions is treated the same as a brown bear, but it's a white-coated polar bear." And
Yeah.
then the one for a giant constrictor snake, which is interesting. This is treated the same as a giant constrictor, but it's a white furred snake. Um, so it kind of encourages you to take any of the monsters, and I think like 3.5 and stuff did a pretty good job of templates for monsters, but this was sort of the originator of that concept. I think it gives you the idea that you can take any of the monsters as a template, change them around a little bit to fit whatever climate or
Mhm.
whatever environment you're dealing with, or if you want something that the players have never seen before. They're crawling through the snow and the mountains and stuff like that. Okay, you guys see a 25-foot long, uh, giant snake covered in fur. They'll have no idea what it is until it constricts them.
Right. Well, there's some ideas. So you look into the dungeon master or the player. I keep getting the wrong book here. The monster manual. Hey, this monster looks pretty cool, right? What kind of environments does it inhabit? For example, the dragon that's on here. That's a pretty cool monster, right? Where would I normally find this kind of type of creature, right?
Right.
I want to build
Mhm.
an account a dungeon around a dragon lair somewhere, and here, well, okay, I'm looking at these tables. I can kind of find them rough or in the desert or in the mountains. Okay, so that's where I would plan to put that lair is in those environments because I'm not going to find it in the swamp, right? So it's useful information here to help you plan things out. You know, and all sorts. Of course, you're going to encounter demi-humans and humans everywhere. Frog subtable, fantastic. I love frogs. Frogs are fun. Giants, where giant encounters and things like this, and subtables. I rolled a giant as the main thing, and I have to consult the subtable as what is found in that particular area. Undead subtable. Yes, you do find undead wandering around the wilderness. And some particularly nasty ones will be out there wandering around the wilderness too. Although, in the case of the vampire, you won't find him during the day. Just saying. Yeah. That'll be a nighttime encounter. And I don't
Right.
know, I
This
don't
note's
remember.
interesting.
Yeah, trying to remember exactly
Uh,
where those tables were in the Dungeon Master's Guide as to when to roll for encounters, because they aren't with these tables. It's in the your campaign planning and building section of the Dungeon Master's Guide where it alerts you to that. Your chance of a random
right. Right.
monster encounter in the wilderness when you're close to a populated area is 1 in 20. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, it's 1 in 10, so it increases. And those are guidelines. And depending where I am at, drives when I should check for those random encounters too. And I don't think it's on these tables, but it's in there. It's useful information to have. Some more
Yeah,
of
and
your
it was a couple
examples.
pages back, that you don't have to go back to it or whatever, but the encounter with jackals, it states that 10%. So the footnotes in the DMG are always important to check. It states that 185, it states that 10% of encounters with jackals, if they're determined in a random manner, are going to be with jackal wares, which you could use as an idea to infer the the possibility of encountering a jackal ware,
Yeah,
right?
I can't see
So,
what
uh,
page number it is here. That's 4, isn't it?
yeah, it's 185. You're right on it, right under the first
The
table
the
there.
marker on my screen says slide 12 covers up the page numbers.
Yeah, and then the same thing with
Yeah,
ogre, right? 10% of encounters
there
with
it is.
ogres are going to be with ogre magi.
Yep. up here towards the top, right underneath that first table up at the top. Right.
Right, right. So that's just a that's a font of ideas also.
Sure. Well, I don't know. If it were an assload lycanthropy, that would be were donkeys, right?
Yeah.
What else we got here? Temperate conditions, right? Love these tables. Excellent. The art in here helps you inspire you and that kind of things too. Tropical and near tropical conditions. One of those things that this book didn't really cover for that sort of stuff was if you're in these environments, then the environmental factors that come in. And there's where your wilderness adventures guide comes into play. Some extra information that was compiled later to help you with that kind of thing. Because if you're trucking it through the jungle in plate mail, you're not going to last long. Yeah. I mean, even though you might be a heroic character, that's still going to be trying on you.
Right.
Yeah.
Freshwater, saltwater, waterborne encounters, right? The different kinds of creatures and stuff that you can encounter in those environments. So, hey, I rolled up a random lake in this particular hex. What could I put in that lake? Even if you could roll it randomly here based off this table, or you're looking at it, say, "Oh, I like this particular monster here." All right, there's some hippopotamuses in this lake. And everybody knows a hippopotamus is a nasty creature. So,
Oh yeah, they're the worst.
I would rather encounter a dinosaur. Yeah. Airborne random monster encounters in there too. So you got characters who can now fly because they've got sufficient levels. They like to fly everywhere. Well, guess what? We can come up with some monsters that can chase them down. City and town encounter matrix. Okay, I've created this town. I'm not sure what I need to do to set up random encounters in my town. This book has got a table for you, right? Well, I don't like these particular parts in this particular town. Well, then don't use them, or pull them out of the table and recreate your own table with things that are in there more related to what you like. But these are some good examples to run with for building things. Good, for a good adventure design, you don't have to use everything. A good thing to do is come up with a theme, right? And just use these for some suggestions on your theme. Drunk encounters. Always going to be drunk encounters in town. That one has to be on every table, I'm pretty sure. Even in the teetotaler towns, somebody found a way to make alcohol, right? I think Yang did something about that in his game, if I remember right.
I don't specifically have that, but I have all sorts of drugs and alcohol issues, like what happens when you are drunk, the possible things that'll happen, diseases that can occur with long-term use. We've got all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Take that kind of stuff. And we've mentioned this before. Those are real life things. Mm-hmm. And throwing some real life things, not like goofy real life stuff that annoys people, but real life things that they can recognize and adapt to. Everybody knows about these sorts of things, that it's in there, so there's something for them to hang on to. And if it's a little more real for them, you're going to get more immersion from your players. They're gonna enjoy it a whole lot better because they've got frame of reference that they can hang on to. Oh yeah, here we go.
Right.
Harlot subtable. Yes, this was the book that had harlots in it that was taken out in other versions. Right.
And I was just going to mention before that came up is that the drunk table is also interesting. Encounters are typically with 1 through 4 tipsy revelers or wine sodden bums. I've been both. And I suppose I should be diced for on any given day.
50% chance.
Gentlemen,
for either.
Today I am an assassin.
Yeah. Yeah, the former case, a type of characters found drunk should be diced for. Oh man, we've had drunk assassin.
Yeah.
because doesn't alcohol suppress your inhibitions, and assassins don't have a whole lot of them to start with. Yeah.
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 Dungeon Master D's comments here. I'm not sure why parents had a problem with this.
I don't know.
Well,
I also like giving it effects like it'll boost your charisma, but like you get a +1 to charisma, but a -1 to dex.
yeah, there is a table for the effects of alcohol in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I can't recall the table right off the top of my head, but maybe we'll review that sometime too when we're talking about running the game and stuff. We'll pull that table up. Yeah, the effects of alcohol. Well, it gives you courage, right? It gives you some extra hit points in some cases too. So isn't that a potion of heroism right there? Yeah.
Yeah, and a potion of wisdom reduction.
Yeah.
So what's
Well,
this
there is that.
harlot table that you speak of?
Where is
Just
it?
for research purposes.
For research purposes. I don't. Where was it at? There we go.
There it is.
Up, the upper left. Yeah. The slovenly troll. Okay. All right. A brazen strumpet. Right. So this was in there. Were these things in medieval towns? Yeah.
Mhm.
So why shouldn't it be in a game? It gives you some realism in there to focus on, and it's not really harmful realism as far as that stuff goes. Right?
I just wonder how this went when they were writing this. Was Gary, was he getting stumped for work? Like, okay, harlot, strumpet, woman of the evening. Hey, honey, what's another word for streetwalker? No, it's for my book, just for my book. Don't worry.
Yeah. For blackjack and booze, or hookers and blow, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. How am I going to turn, a harlot table out of 3 or 4 descriptions? I've got percentile dice I want to roll on here. I need a bunch of entries. Yeah. I get, Gary Gygax must have just sat down for fun reading a thesaurus at times. I'm just saying.
Yeah. And I think sometimes I think sometimes he just he just trolls people too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, if you're writing, I think this thing comes out to like 200 and something thousand words or thereabouts. If you're sitting there doing that on a typewriter, why the hell am I doing this? Yeah. Cheap trollop.
Right. And something to be considered with this game wasn't like a game intended for children. Can kids play it? Sure. But it wasn't a game that was strictly intended for children. It was for young adults or adults, right? I mean, because that was his gamer group, other than his own kids, was other adults of his approximate age, right? So
yeah,
that was the intended office.
Didn't it say 13 and up on the box?
There was no box that came with this edition, so maybe it did.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I think the other ones were 12.
Basic D&D. Basic D&D doesn't have a harlot table in it, right? So.
Oh, and look what they did with Redbox.
That's why it's advanced.
This is
Redbox. They did 10 and up.
Yeah.
To make it a little more friendly or whatever. I suppose being in the midst of the panic.
The harlot table, yeah. But there we go. So you've got tables here that we can use, and that's another excellent piece of art. Somebody went there, took a picture of that where this art was and posted that online and for the meme or whatever. I think this is probably one of the most copied pictures out of the book.
Yeah, there's real genius there, And what do you call it artistically? Cross hatching or something like that. There's so much work in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of planning.
Right.
And that's Green Griffin. Everybody's got a green griffin in their town now, right? Here we go.
Yes.
Random generation creature from lower panes. That's the end of what it is. We end at the magic possessed by encounter creatures in town, and there's chance per level of magic item for your random encounter in town, right? So your drunk assassin could be carrying a magic weapon, right? Hold on, let me check on here. Is it in here? Illusionist, labor, magic user. There's no leprechaun in here. Man.
Oh. Well, thank
We-
God.
Yeah, well, we could roll up a leprechaun and then come over here and roll him up, having a magic dagger to take from him, right?
We're going back for that, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go. We'll have to go hunt that guy down. All right, but we'll camp out there. We'll build our stronghold around that cave, though. Find that guy. So, I mentioned creating tables, and we'll kick it over here to the Monster Manual 2 section. Creating your own random encounter tables. Those are some examples and stuff in there. Well, when he released Monster Manual 2, Gary Gygax put in there some guidance as to how to create your own random encounter tables. His philosophy for why the tables appeared the way they did in there, right? And you want to create your own. Here's your excellent template. Okay, these monsters aren't in my campaign. They're not on my world. Like you're running a Talislanta game that has no elves, so you would pull elves out of the tables, and you would create your own tables with this. So yeah, you got to get the Monster Manual 2 to get this, right? But I'm pretty sure you could find a copy of this somewhere online, somewhere or another, how to create your own tables using this particular template. So you could use this idea to create your own random encounter tables in your dungeons, in your world, and stuff based on what you would find in that area. You've decided that these particular creatures are in around that particular area. This is how I would design that table based on that. He's going back to look at the spell the wizard is casting and think about it for a moment. Images like that help define our mental pictures of what spell casting would even look like. Yes. That one, let's go back to it. That to me is a magic missile.
Yep, magic missile.
Mhm.
Yep.
That's what I call it.
So
I think the PHB even says, the missile comes from your index finger. So
sure, but even without any sort of that information, bam, that's what I'm thinking when I look at this one. Little magic missile,
right.
boom, off it goes and pops him. So why is this other guy here on fire? What did they hit him with first, right? So whoever's attacking this magic user is having a bad. Well, they're all having a bad day. But, yep, great art. So we'll go back to this one here. Creating your own random encounter tables, right? The random encounter charts at the beginning of this section utilize a small selection of the 900 plus monsters listed in the combined Monster Manuals 1 and 2 and Fiend Folio. Well, that's a book I really don't like a lot of the monsters that are in there, so I don't ever crack it open. But those monsters were included in these tables and stuff as well. These charts are designed for general use in campaign settings as a guide for dungeon masters in creating their own charts. This is what the charts look like. Well, here's how we arrived at that sort of thing. So this is a great piece of information to have handy when you're designing your scenarios out of how to set up your random encounter tables. Right? And they follow a logical progression. Right? The outside die rolls are for the monsters that are very rare or harder to find, whereas the inner die rolls are more commonly encountered monsters. Works better on a random, or not the random, what do they call it? The bell curve, distribution curve chart for that sort of thing. But it's not a bad deal here for this, because on a 2 to 20, that's 2d10. So here's your bell curve chart already to start with.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the real things that Gary understood was numbers and distributions and whatnot. and it shows in the work. So even if you were to take nothing else from 1E, the concept of the bell curve and all that kind of stuff, if you're not familiar with it, it would be, and the way that the game is structured around that, in terms of randomization, is very interesting.
We kind of briefly went over it a little bit when we were talking about this stuff. At the very beginning of the Dungeon Master's Guide is an explanation of probabilities and all that stuff, and why, and the dice rolls and things like this. So if you were totally new to this concept altogether, you can get enough information out of the Dungeon Master's Guide to get a handle on what all this stuff was about. The other one I had here, we'll go into this. Now that we've created our dungeon and we wanted to, okay, I want to build a troll lair somewhere, right? So first off, we've encountered him as a wandering monster. Right. Well, I just rolled him up on the wandering monster. There's this little item on here that is percent in lair. If he is encountered somewhere, roll percent in lair. If I make that percentage, hey, somewhere close by to, we've encountered him in the woods somewhere close by is where his lair is, right? So we could find that sort of thing. So players would go around, not that they would know that he's anywhere near his lair, but that's just for the dungeon master to decide. Okay, they're hunting around the area to try and see if they can figure out where he came from. Roll it up. Oh yeah, he's got a lair somewhere nearby. Come out with your cave map out of the hip pocket or something, and bam, you can populate his lair and stuff with it.
Yeah, and that should be something that
is 1 to 12.
Right, and it should be something that the player characters are actively, kind of looking out for if they're making an overland journey.
Sure.
Anything you encounter, and you come to this realization over time as a player, even if you haven't DM'd before, if it's done right, is over time you come to the realization that I need to. Where did these guys come from? Let's follow tracks, assuming there are any, and determine whether or not these guys are just indeed just a roving band of whatever particular nasty is on the menu at that time, or whether they're just within the area patrolling, looking for food, hunting, whatever,
Sure.
outside their lair.
I mean, I chose troll here because it's one of my favorite monsters. It's an easy one.
It's
Everybody
a good one.
loves trolls. Yeah. It's a deadly monster, especially to new players. Everybody knows how to handle a troll these days, unfortunately, because everybody's read ahead. But you get a brand new group. Go ahead.
And one thing I find interesting about the troll that I'm trying to recall if it's stated for any other monsters. I think in some cases it would be obvious, but it's specifically stated that a troll can split his attacks. Right, so it's an interesting creature in the sense that beyond all the other stuff, it's interesting that it's specifically stated for this creature that it can split its attacks, which
Sure.
can almost lead you to infer that either that's due to its large size or it's due to some sort of particular special ability it has. But you could also infer, even though it's not specifically stated in the DMG, to the best of my recollection, you can infer that's sort of a special ability, and special attacks, for example, it says see below. That's sort of a special ability of that creature alone, and you might not be able to do that as, say, a fighter splitting attack routines or something along those lines.
Well, I mean, your typical attack routine, say a mountain lion pounces on you. All his attacks are going into the same target, right? The claw bite and the rake, or whatever it is you want to call it, all that's going into the same target, But that's an animal intelligence creature. Even though a troll has got low intelligence, it's still got some intelligence. So you can attribute some of that to the fact that they're intelligence. And here's what I'm getting at. Here, Dungeon Master D asking here, does that mean that other monsters cannot split their attacks if not directly mentioned? Yes and no. I'm going from the standpoint, I think because a troll is an intelligence monster, it's got a humanoid intelligence, basically low, but it's still got one. It is able to split up its attacks number one, because it's got multiples that it can do. Number two, because it's smart enough to be able to divide its things up against multiple foes. Whereas in animal intelligence, their entire thought process is to take in what I've got right in front of me and take care of it quickly. So
Yeah,
the
and
answer
it's
to this
really
question is yes and no. You decide as a dungeon master's guide if it's an intelligence monster, and it doesn't say specifically. Yeah, well, okay, makes sense. Maybe it can split its attacks, or it's not an intelligent monster, so it would concentrate on one single enemy at a time, regardless of the number of attacks it has. And
right, or it might be a matter of size, because I'm certainly not going to take a dragon that for whatever reason is on the ground fighting a party, which shouldn't happen. But I'm not going to take a dragon and say, hey, he's got a claw bite wing. There's
also
one
an intelligent
individual
monster.
cleric. It is, but it's also very large. So let's take what about a dual wielding goblin or a dual wielding kobold? Say you got a kobold who has a dagger and a dart that he uses to stab, and he decides to dual wield. Can he attack two different guys?
Well, he's a zero
He's
level
intelligent,
fighter.
right? I mean, assuming that kobold wants to take, unlimited penalties.
Right. And that's a good question. I wouldn't have let it. I would have my kobolds just all attacks into one, because if it's using two weapons, that's its attack routine. That attack routine on one target.
Yeah, right. And the troll has an attack routine, which, so for me personally, it would be a matter of having intelligence and having the size capable to engage multiple enemies at the same time. And I don't think that I generally don't, but I don't think that I would afford that to creatures of like medium size, no matter how smart they are. But again, it's a matter of contention, and to each their own on that. Right? It's your game.
Well, true. I mean, but you look at it this way: a Quasit might have long claws, but he doesn't have long arms to reach multiple targets.
Right.
Yeah. Let's see. So we've rolled our encounter. We've got our troll here. We've rolled these presented layers. So we've got a lair somewhere nearby, because we want to reinforce this, that with gold for XP, the XP for the encounter with the troll isn't the troll. It's his loot wherever it's hidden, because that should be a greater value of XP than just the monster itself, right? So with gold for XP, you want to go find these lairs if there are lairs. If you run into something out in the woods somewhere, where's its lair? Where's nearby? Because there's where the worth is going to be from that monster. Using them correctly, wandering monsters are delaying a tactic if you got time crunch on scenarios or something like this. But another reason to use wandering monster encounters is it makes your world feel lived in. That your players aren't just the only thing wandering around the woods. There's other stuff out there too. Let's see, an organism understand its capacity, in my opinion, I would more classify that under instinct. Okay.
Well, there's a lot of creatures where that's certainly the case. Most of your animal intelligence creatures, and I addressed that in sort of my rewrite of the intro to the monster manual that I had published. It's just because something is animal intelligent or even non-intelligent, it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have an understanding of tactics and strategy related to its own evolutionary process and survival.
It's going to understand.
Yeah. Now trolls in particular, right? Trolls, they have low intelligence, but that low intelligence is like a 5 to 7. So they're a little bit below your average human commoner, which means they can speak and that sort of thing, even if it's their guttural own language that nobody understands or whatever.
Or cares.
Right. Kill it with fire.
Yeah, but
it's the only way to be sure.
you don't know that unless you've encountered trolls before or you've read the book
Yeah.
ahead of time or something like this, right?
Yeah,
But that's the
right.
thing. The troll, being a smart monster, would be able to know all my attacks against this one creature or split them up against multiples. Whereas
Right. Right.
the lion's instinct is to jump on my food, take it out as quickly as possible, and then drag it off into the trees. Right? It's not looking for multiple meals. The troll's a little more greedy. I remember back in the day when a DM had the trolls turn to stone. Yes, I like trolls that turn. I used my Tolkien-esque type trolls in my games too, but they're not going to look the same. They're going to look a bit different. Right? I like that concept where they turn to stone if they're out exposed to daylight and stuff. I mean, what was it? Boromir's line. They've got a cave troll. And, oh, great, right? Now we're in trouble.
When that movie came out, that was just sitting in the theater for the first time. That was an incredible battle. I loved it. I loved it.
Oh man, they just did some. If all you watch it for is the battles, it's still great.
Yeah.
And the Battle of Pelennor Fields is one of my favorite things. I mean, there's some good stuff in there. They were kind of reaching for a little bit with the Battle of Five Armies and some of them goofy things that were coming up out of the ground and everything like that. But overall, it was still pretty good.
Right.
So, what's important here about the troll? Number appearing 1 to 12. Okay, we've rolled and determined that he's in lair. His treasure type is D, Delta. Right? So, here's your. I love this negative art as well. I'm glad you put this in here. This is for
Thanks. I am too. Yeah. And I'm glad Yang showed up because you know more about art than I do, Yang. And this is particularly with Trampier, this is something that I've often wondered. It seems like how do you know like how you do this from because like when I was a kid or whatever, they had these black things. Yep. Right. And it was just this black wax board or whatever. And you could etch out the parts that you wanted colored. You know what I'm saying? Is that this type of thing or is this just
well, it's hard to know exactly, but given the time that it was done, it probably just started as a blank white piece of paper. And then you would pencil in your basic shapes. And then to me, it looks like a lot of brushwork and maybe some pen in there as well. But I think it kind of looks mostly like brush. And then what you can do is you can actually paint white over parts of it too. So if you say like, oh, well, I want a little too black here, you can add, like I would bet, on the maybe, well, on this sword, on the hilt there, it kind of looks to me like they added in some dots of white for more highlights. If you kind of look at the teeth on not fingers, maybe like the front two especially, it looks like they had some lines to make it make it darker because they're receding a little bit. But then it looks like the artist said it's a little too much, and they went over. Sometimes they would just use simple whiteout, or there's a kind of paint called gesso. They might have used that.
I was just going to mention that because it just occurred to me as you were saying that I saw a Bob Ross thing not too long ago where he's like, yeah, we're just going to coat the canvas with black gesso, and maybe that's right. Thank you.
And when I look at the skull right under the chest there, like the weird kind of I almost want to call it like shoelace looking white marks on it, that to me looks like it was added later too. But most of it looks like they probably did it originally. They just like, generally if there's like a large area that's black, you just put an X in it and then you get a big brush and you just paint that black real quick. And then And if you look at the upper right, it looks like there's definitely hatching going on. So my guess is it would have started as a white piece of paper with quick pencil drawing, and then they went in with the inks.
One day we'll
Yeah,
sit
and
down
it's
and
so
we'll have
dynamic.
one day let's sit down and have just a chat on just the art.
Sure.
Because there's so much we can talk about. I'll see if my brother will come in on this. My brother worked as a commercial artist for a while too, mostly technical drawings and stuff, but he went to art school and all that stuff, and that's his thing. So we can bring in chat with him a little bit. He's also another great dungeon master and stuff. He's done a stream with me before. Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah. We talked about game mastering and being a good game master and being a good player. Yeah.
Now, just to give a contrast to the modern, if this were today, it probably would have just done it like white background and like black everywhere you see white, and then just inverted the image at the end because it would have been easier that way. Just in Photoshop.
Right. Right, because there wasn't digital, pre-production or post-production or whatever at the time of this, which you could get in Photoshop. That's what always made me curious about how he did this and the evocative style behind it, and him being primarily the guy who did that, and almost the only guy who did that. Some later artists did some ink washes and these kinds of things that I really enjoyed, but the way that he chose to stick out the parts that were highlighted and sort of recess everything else into the background makes it really visceral feeling. Like I can imagine being that guy in the middle, or that guy over the middle guy's right shoulder, the torchbearer, who's the nefarious NPC who's secretly evil.
There we go. There's a nice little comment on there. That's excellent. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's some of us will probably look at it. Right. So, trolls come 1 to 12. Their treasure type is D. And for the longest time, I just rolled on this table, and what I got was what I got. I didn't realize that this treasure types table is optimal for the maximum number that appear. If you've got 12 trolls, what you roll here is what they're going to have. 1 to 8,000 copper, 10%. 1 to 12,000 silver, 15%. 1 to 8,000 electrum, 15%. 1 to 6,000 gold, 50%. Of course, because all trolls have gold, right? 1 to 10 gem, 30%. Jewelry, 1 to 6 pieces of jewelry, 25%. And then any 2 magic maps or magic items plus 1 potion, 15%, right? So any of those things could be. This is the optimal horde of 12 trolls. If you have less than that, you've got 6. What you roll up, you should have, because what you have appearing on this table is the optimal for that. So that was one way of not over giving treasure, was keeping that in mind, that this was the optimal number based on the maximum that you could encounter. And I think all of us as young DMs gave all of this stuff out willy-nilly based and not really thinking of that kind of thing. So when you're creating your troll horde, keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I used to just roll on this table for fun, even when I didn't have a game, right? Just to be like, hey, let's see what I can come up with for this dragon,
Oh yeah, I spent long hours rolling on this.
You could kill hours. Yeah. Nice.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. Awesome.
I love all Scandinavian stuff for the most part. Anyway,
check it out. Yeah, there's a guy on YouTube with Jeremy Crawford or whatever talks about Norse, and the main thing is he's a Norse scholar. I love listening to his discussions about runes and the Norse traditions and all. It's some excellent stuff.
Right.
So here we go. I've laid out pretty much everything I wanted to cover as far as. You mean treasure isn't per troll? No, this is what is on this table is for all the trolls, the whole 12 of them. If you have one troll, you're only getting 1/12 of what you should only have in that horde 1/12 of what you roll up. Okay. Yeah. And I know he's
Yeah,
being facetious with this particular comment, but yeah, it does bear repeating that's the way this was intended. Right, because
and it's relevant to the discussion.
Yeah,
because if you look at the table and you'll come to recognize it over time, and you'll obviously recognize it if somebody points it out to you, is that J through N are the individual treasure types. Okay, so you'll find that all monsters that have J through N or have individual treasure types. Now, sometimes they'll have J through N times a certain amount with a comma and then the lair treasure afterwards. But if you see anything that's not a J through N, then that's lair treasure. Anything that is a J through N is non-lair treasure. But there's one particular one. What is it? The ogre, I think. One of them has, somebody has type O, and I think it's the only monster that should have individual. I think that's the only case. I can't remember right off the top of my head, but one of them has O.
Is it the roper?
Wow, I wish I
Because
could remember. I want to say
roper has got gems in its gullet. When I just gave a little spoiler there to people who haven't used it before.
Spoiler.
No players listen to this. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. I want to say it was one of the giant types. What's the attend got? Yes, yes, the attend has individual O. So here's where the problem comes up, right? The two-headed giant guy has individual O, but somebody else also has O, but it's not listed as individual O.
No, I think roper, it specifies specifically, not a treasure type, it specifies specifically what they have in their gullet. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. That's all there is 1 to 4 gems. 50%. So there's a good chance of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And with the way the dice explode on that or whatever, you can end up with some awesome gems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so which one stole my wee men? Type O negative. Well, I'm O positive. That's my blood type.
It's about my favorite, just about my favorite band of all time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on what genre we're talking about, what my favorite is.
Right. It goes back and forth, but they were genre crossing, and that's something I really appreciated.
We want to talk about genre crossing, we can talk about DRI, but
yeah, we could talk about suicidal tendencies.
Sure.
Also some of my favorites.
All right, so Yang, let us in on some of your secrets about good game design, good dungeon design.
Well, I will say, first of all, I do my tables a little bit differently than these. Just to make things more complicated, I have one table that you roll first for the kind of encounter, because when you're wandering, you will not only meet monsters, but you will occasionally have neutral encounters or good encounters. A neutral encounter could be you meet trappers in the woods, and as long as you don't seem like you're going to report them for poaching, they might give you information that helps you find a secret path through the woods or something. You might have a beneficial encounter. You might meet some friendlies. Maybe there's a little elf village there that's friendly towards you. And then with the monster encounters, I divide them up into easy, medium, hard, and deadly. and then you would roll on a separate table, which has the monsters for whatever area it is that you're in. So if it's foresty monsters, plains, you would have something for that. If you're on the water, would be some sort of water monsters, whatever. And then, depending on the difficulty of the basically of the fight that's coming, that's how you would determine how many monsters that they would fight. So I split it up a little bit differently there, because I do think that sometimes DMs forget, like, not everything in the world is going to be bad.
No, shouldn't be.
Sure.
Well, that's what the reaction tables were for.
Yeah.
And I don't
exactly.
see that it's not in the newer games, reaction tables. It's a fantastic piece. That's going to force everybody into role playing. Look, they had a positive reaction. Oh man, I can't run up and kill them now. I got to do something else. Right?
Exactly. So, or maybe you just find a little girl who's lost in the forest. Then what do? Do you continue on? Do you take her back?
Isn't there horror movies written about that?
Well, I didn't say those are positive encounters. But so I do those that way. And then, like Gary had mentioned, I take monsters that are specific to whatever environment and whatever feel. So I might have the same area, but different wandering monster tables, depending on the time that the characters are there. Like, so in Empire of the Undying Sun, there's this group of elvish cultists, separatists called the Brethren of the Fox. So if you go out like into the woods and into the fields at first, they're not onto you, but once you sort of run afoul of them, like now you have more and different kind of enemies that are after you. So maybe they're stalking you. And I also have I add something I call the pressure mechanic, which is if you're out wandering, you will have a deadly encounter with one of these groups. Like you would, the DM would roll a die to figure out like how many days or exploration rounds can the party walk without getting somewhere safe. Like if they get in another town, they're fine, or a friendly farmhouse or whatever, it's fine. But how long can they go before they'll be attacked? So if your guys are going through the woods or they're farting around like, oh, let's do this or that, or maybe they get lost, then they're susceptible to these other groups that are now hunting them.
Sure. And your conditional encounters that, why I rolled up a vampire. Why would he be out there during the day? That's not a daytime encounter. That should be a nighttime encounter. Right. So definitely adjust your encounter tables accordingly. And that's the best way of doing it. Don't just do something totally random, because then if something shows up that doesn't make sense, then you got to kind of scratch that. Build things based on the environment, what would normally be found there, and at those times.
Yeah, and if I had one sort of gripe about, using these tables and whatnot, I think a lot of people would be like, oh, this table's good enough. And they wouldn't edit it down to their own. Mm-hmm. And then it just feels like very generic-y D&D. Whereas like I always say feels before everything. And what I mean is if you're going into like a spooky wood, it should have creatures that are spooky in it. You're, maybe you would find like a hunter in the woods, but it's like a possessed hunter, or, beguiled by an evil spirit or something. You wouldn't have just maybe like a normal goblin, but you maybe like spiders looking for victims, and you come across areas that are, just all sorts of bodies hanging, wrapped up in webs. Like whatever it is you're doing, you got to have the right atmosphere to get people into it, and then to make it, even though we know it's a fantasy game, to make it sort of believable.
Right, because then you get buy-in, they're going to have more fun, they're going to understand it's going to be a little more, more interesting stuff to them. You mentioned your bad things about to happen. Are you familiar with the Expanse role-playing game?
I have not played the Expanse role playing game. I want to.
It's based on the age system. I've run a game before. My brother's run a game. It is a lot of fun. One of the mechanics that they have in that game, and I think I might steal it for some other games, is called the churn, which is exactly what you're talking about. There's a countdown timer going as you're running through, and eventually the churn you're ground up by the system, right?
Yep.
And because that was a theme that Amos kept mentioning all the time, the churn, and eventually it builds up tension in the game, and something happens. And that, when you mentioned your mechanic, that's what I thought of right away. It sounded very similar to that. That things are building to the point where something's going to happen.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, a lot of people will say like you can't have horror in Dungeons and Dragons.
Why not?
But if you, they just say it's not possible. But if you look at other systems that are like horror specific, like Call of Cthulhu or Dread, where you're playing with a Jenga tower, why does everyone agree that yes, those are horror and you feel terror? Because as you lose those sanity points, you get kind of that feeling in the pit of your stomach. And as that Jenga tower goes higher and higher, like it's coming for someone. And so the same thing, you need sort of a depreciating resource that you can't really get back. Hit points, there's too many healing spells, too many healing potions. So you don't quite have that same feel, at least most of the time. But if you have something like the churn or some other mechanic, why the sanity points work is because as it gets slower and slower, you get that stress, that anxiety builds up. And that's what you really need for a horror system, or it doesn't even have to be horror. You could just be ratcheting up the tension, like especially like, let's say during a hex crawl, maybe you want to give people a time limit, like, hey, excuse me, you have 6 months to make it across this desert. And it's like, oh, okay, 6 months, no problem. But then like you keep getting attacked by things, creatures will steal your food at night. So you have to take time out to hunt, and pressure just keeps ratcheting up and up. And then you have players willing to like, okay, well, we're running behind. So we better double time it. Maybe we'll take this really dangerous river rapid. Or maybe there's this pass in the mountains that's, the pass of the screaming skull or something, and then, when they're willing to make those, when they're willing to make those kind of choices because they have that pressure, then, all bets are off. You can have all sorts of awesome encounters in there.
For a new game, and we'll go off a little bit here because we mentioned age system and we mentioned the Expanse RPG. For a new game, Shadow Dark does that with their torch counter. They brought that in there and to build that tension and stuff in it. There's no reason you cannot steal ideas from other games and use them in D&D. You want to build some tension in there? We've got to get through. Prime example of tension in a dungeon, getting from one side of Moria to the other.
Yeah.
Right. And you had to do that as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And then the possibility that you'd be caught by orcs or at least found out. And then, you hit them with something even worse than they expected.
Because nobody knew the Balrog was in there.
Absolutely.
Right? Exactly. That sort of thing. And you can use that in your game too. You build a dungeon based on a particular theme, throw something in there. The jump scare tactic works perfect in D&D because you've got a limited range of your lights, but the monsters can see you a mile off coming at them, right? So they can set up things like ambushes and stuff like this for you to come after them. It's perfect for that sort of thing. Yeah. Cool. That was excellent. Well, you guys got anything else you want to talk about in here? We've been monopolizing this conversation there, Dooms. You got something you want to bring up?
No, not in particular. And thanks for asking. I like that. I like that mechanic, Yang. And
thank you.
And I'd also like to say, I mean, I think it's great to add mechanics that sort of are sort of codified in a kind of way that also lets the players sort of intuit what's going on in the game so that they can adjust their strategy, and only a mechanic is going to do that. But I'd also like to say that D&D not being a horror game, which most people don't think it is a complete fallacy, right? Because there's nothing more horrifying than just being some medieval guy and walking down into a hole in the ground, where you have to have a light source and all that, and really Shadow Dark. There's some things that were simplified there, but I think a big part of Shadow Dark's success was that people just didn't run these games by the rules as they were written in the books, and Shadow Dark was capable of capitalizing that and simplifying it into a mechanical base that people could understand. And then all of a sudden people are like, man, this is horrifying, and it's like, it always has been, but it depends on the way that the game is run, because too many games, almost all of them really, just hand wave light sources, hand wave, and to a certain extent that's going to be okay, because eventually you're going to get to the level where you can cast continual light and everybody can have a continual light bauble in their pocket or something like that they can pull out whenever, but they still have to pull that out, right? The default experience is darkness, and I agree that the sanity mechanic in Call of Cthulhu is a really good one, because that gives you, as a player, a certain amount of points, and there's other things that you can benefit from in Call of Cthulhu, like reading mythos tomes and whatnot, but they are going to take your sanity down. So I think D&D shouldn't necessarily have a sanity mechanic, but some sort of mechanic, if you're not going to make the extra effort to really immerse those characters. There was a line from Tropic Thunder, right? Have you guys seen that movie?
Yeah.
Freaking hilarious. But the whole movie's failing and whatever, and the fake Vietnam vet. And he's like, you got to put those boys in the stuff, right? The real stuff. Let's do it live. And it's kind of like that. So when I've spoken about it before, not to ramble, but when I design encounters in dungeons, I basically try to put myself in that position, and use that as my inspiration. And of course, in that case, everything sort of has to make sense. But we've spoke at length about this. But I like the idea of having a specific mechanic included in the game, at least as an optional type of thing, and that's interesting. And incidentally, I did just hear about, and I don't know how I came across it, but I did just hear earlier about the Jenga tower thing today.
Oh,
I think I saw it on X. I think I saw it on X in some silly thread.
Dread is a fantastic game. And I call it the gateway drug to getting your girlfriend to do role-playing games.
Leave you?
Apparently, as long as it doesn't involve dice, women are fairly amenable to it.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
No math.
Nice.
A lot of the Dread modules are written as kind of like 80s horror, so they're almost like Stranger Things-like, which women generally love Stranger Things. So if you do that, and they understand the Jenga tower, and there's no math, not implying women can't do math, but they just don't want to.
Oh boy.
And it's even more fun.
We're clipping that as a short. women can't do math, and that's it.
So it says, well.
So that is great. And another thing that the pressure mechanic I have found is excellent for is talking about an opposing adventuring party. You can use it to sort of you're both after the same thing. So you can use it as a countdown to when they find you or when you encounter them, There's always some faction that will hate your party for whatever reason. So it's great, like your players are trying to avoid them, and whether they can or not, you don't know.
Yeah, use that. The opposing party, they're there to looking for the same things you are. You need to get them first.
Yep.
And I will say that anybody that says first edition Dungeons and Dragons isn't a scary game, isn't terrifying, never had a 7th level fighter just make level and a specter come around the corner.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that is a white man, a white.
Totally terrified.
One recent game I played in, man, I got 5th level, then I became 4th level, then I got 5th level, then I became 4th level, then I got 5th level, then I ended up dying.
You're 7th level. Now you have multiple attacks per round, and all of a sudden the dungeon master's going to take it away from you. Totally terrifying.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't give away level drain for the world, and I think later editions.
It is. That adds that tension element right there. It is a great tension element.
Big time.
Because
does,
you don't want to tangle.
I don't know. That's the one thing I won't put in mind, because if you
harsh.
The problem is you're there to have fun. And at the end of the day, like, I'm okay with taking all of the players' gear. I'm okay with a lot of things, but the level, like, if you look at people when they find out they've lost a level, just like all the fun drains right out of their face, and they're like, oh, whatever. So to me, like, that's just one step too far. I know most people disagree with me, but
no, I don't think that most people disagree with you. I think, and it's probably getting off topic or whatever, but I think that level drain is less severe when the game is properly adjudicated and is monetary treasure and experience point rich, right?
Yeah.
And that's something like, and I'll go to I think Pathfinder for this. You have different advancement tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have slow advancement, medium advancement. I'm by no means an expert, or fast advancement, and that and that kind of thing helps. But if your game is full of experience and treasure ripe for the taking, then level drain isn't necessarily as bad. If it's not, then level drain, yes. The times I've been level drained, many times that I've been level drained, has been soul crushing. It's like, okay.
You keep it in mind. Everybody understands this is part of the game. The game mechanics come in.
Yeah.
Design your scenario where this creature is there that could cause this hazard. But when you design this, there needs to be a way of defeating that creature without him taking your levels, right? So, play it fair. Give them the opportunity to be able to do so. You don't want to be the evil soul dungeon master that's taking the levels away, gleefully laughing as they walk through this trap that they can't possibly avoid.
Right?
With that
because maybe they should be able to run away.
When they're with that tension in there, when they defeat that monster without losing it, the elation that comes from that far exceeds anything else.
Yeah, I agree. But when it comes down to it, I would rather have my character die than lose levels, because then it's just like I'm going backwards,
Now,
kind of.
In relation to what you had said before, I would rather my character keep all of his stuff than to,
but you can always get more stuff.
Yeah, you can always get more stuff, but then again, you have to be playing in a game where treasure and that sort of thing is plentiful, and that varies by DM and party and composition and adventure and all that kind of thing. I'd rather lose a level and keep my stuff than lose my stuff and keep a level. Now, unfortunately, I've been in situations where I've both lost a level and all of my stuff, and You know,
And died.
that's yeah, and that's fury inducing, right? So level, for me, level drain is fine, as long as there's one of the I series of modules. I think it's Pharaoh. Actually, in one of the places, the party walks down the hallway, and they can come around a corner in this corridor in this underground area of the buried pyramid or whatever it is. And they come around the corner, and there's a white, but it's hunched over with its back to them and that sort of thing. And if they listen closely, it's making guttural sounds and looks like it's manipulating something on the floor. Now, if the players want to charge in there and say, okay, well, I don't care what it is, I'm going in and attacking it, well, then they get what they deserve. But if it's a situation where, say, okay, we open the door. Ha ha, there's 4 whites in here and they have surprise. It's like, okay. So if I run, they're going to attack me automatically, or I just stand here. And then you just, yeah. And then the die roll comes and it's coming for you. Every time I've been level drained, I think I've known that the level drain was coming. Like I knew before the die was rolled that it would result in me being miserable.
Yeah.
And restoration.
A comment on that. Level drain is fine as long as you provide ways of restoring what was lost. Whoops. You collect stuff, then you keep your stuff, and then you want to guard the place where your stuff is. You're responsible adult in game. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
restoration and stuff is critically important, and it requires a treasure rich.
Yep. And the Spectre had a nice hoard. Okay, I lost a level, but we just collected enough gold to put me back to the beginning of that level again, right?
I don't know. It's a lot of gold.
We might have been able to get a little further.
It is a lot of gold.
By them, we would have been a little further along, but at least there's some way of getting back what you had just lost. You got to design your dungeons the way Gary Gygax did. What you needed to defeat that monster was in the monster's treasure hoard.
Yeah.
Right, you've got that, and then you've also got the idea that look, you can give a party tons of treasure, and they will blow it. There's a whole lot of ways in the game for it to be blown, but they'll find new ways to blow it outside of training and everything else. And like that comment, it depends on what the DM does. If making up a character doesn't do anything except put me at the same level as I already was, then sure, I'll just make up a new character. And that's where you get things like, like, this dude was this guy's cousin, and my will and testament gave him all my stuff. So the party has to give this guy all the stuff that he had, because I'm coming right back in at the same level,
Okay, my twin brother's here now. There's nothing unique about that sort of thing. I like the idea that, oh man, my character died. We can't get him back or anything. I'm starting over again. I'm starting over again at first level. I've got to be cautious with this party, right? But I'm going to be gaining level fast because the stuff that's coming at us is going to provide that treasure. My shares are going to come in great enough that my level should increase fairly quickly to catch up fairly well.
Yeah.
Right. That's one thing I never want to do personally is rob myself of the character building opportunities from levels 1 to 5 or whatever. I really dislike, unless it's just unless it's like a convention game or something like that with pre-gens, I really dislike starting a new character at a higher level than first. I'd rather come in at first, even if it means I die, but generally it won't if I'm a smart player.
Right.
And you will gain faster.
Yeah. That's what the system is. It's designed for that. Yeah. Cool. Well, again, this was another great discussion again. I'm glad you guys decided to join me and said yes for whatever foolish reasons. Yep.
Well, my reason is because I'm a fool.
Okay,
So
gotcha. Yeah.
there's that, right?
Yeah.
Yang, I don't know about his because you know.
I'm avoiding Yang Yan Zhao 5.
Gotcha. Yeah. So he's hiding over here on this stream so he doesn't get caught. Okay.
That's
So
right.
you're welcome to shelter here at any time. Yeah. Cool. Well, I've covered what I wanted to cover. I don't have anything else to go. If you guys don't get nothing else, we'll go ahead and cut this short and plan the next one for next week. Thanks again for joining me, Yang.
Thanks for having me.
Dooms. Appreciate having you guys here. I'm going to go ahead.
Thanks for having me, and nice talking to you, Yang.
Yeah,
Always
good seeing you again.
All right,
See you guys.
Put this stuff back. All right. Ooh, here we go. Let me go back to what is this one? However these work. Bam, there we go. All right. Thanks for joining me here on the Great Old Ones channel for another discussion on dungeon design. We talked a little bit more about other stuff than just dungeon design, but that happens when Dooms and I get together, and we brought Yang in to give us his opinions and all this stuff on it. If you like this stuff, please like and subscribe. Let me throw these banners back up again. Go visit Doom Swords. Subscribe to his channel as well if you're not already. Subscribe to Yang Yang Zhao's 4, right? Because he eliminated the other 3. Go subscribe to his channel again and join us again for another night when we come back and talk more about first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Again, if you got any comments, you got any questions, you want us to talk about things, throw that stuff there in the chat. We'll answer your questions best we can. We will put that stuff into a new stream. We answer questions and give us some ideas because clearly we're old people. We don't have all the answers. We love having you guys give us something to talk about. So please like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon if you want to be notified when this stuff happens. But I think I've set it up at a regular Thursday night. You probably really don't need those, but maybe. Thanks again for joining us, and I am going to go ahead and end this stream.